Welcome to New at NAMT, the next wave of musical theater writers, a series dedicated to spotlighting the emerging voices in musical theater. Every interview provides a unique glimpse into the creative minds behind the next big musicals. So whether you're a producer, theater lover, or even simply curious about the future of musical theater, New at NAMT offers a front row seat to a new generation of writers. It's time to lower the lights, raise the curtain, and LX1, go on New at NAMT. I am your host, Jean-Paul Yovanoff from Musical Theater Radio, and joining me each week is a rotating cast of NAMT Festival consultants as our co-hosts. As part of the NAMT Festival, each musical is matched with consultants who are artistic leaders from the NAMT member organizations, who have also championed the show through the festival selection process or want to champion the show moving forward. The consultants work with their writing teams through all creative stages of the presentation and advocate for the artists and the show at the festival. Today we are chatting with Karen Hartman, Jenny Giering, and Adam Gwon about their powerful new musical, Alice Bliss. Now, before we get into today's interview, let's welcome this week's co-hosts, Elissa Adams and Liz Ulmer. Hello to the two of you, and welcome to New at NAMT.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thanks so much for having us.
All right. Now, before we get to our guests, we got to get to know you each a little bit better. So, Liz, let's start with you.
Sure. My name is Liz Ulmer. I am, this is my third year consulting with NAMT. I'm also a member of the selection committee. I am the director of live stage operations at Sony Music Publishing. So I work on a lot of licensing for music in jukebox musicals and dance shows and all sorts of that fun kind of stuff. And then I also work with several writers of original works. For instance, we worked with the band Jamestown Revival, who wrote the music for The Outsiders, which of course was a Tony Award-winning musical. So prior to that, my background is actually in theatrical administration. I've been a GM and a company manager for several commercial and nonprofit ventures over the years. And I'm really thrilled to be part of this particular show. It was one of my favorites when I read it. So looking forward to it.
Great. And up next, our other co-host, Elissa. How are you?
Hi. I'm Elissa Adams, and I'm the Associate Artistic Director and Director of New Work at Theater Latte Da, which is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we produce only musicals and plays with music. And this is my third year serving on the festival selection committee, and actually my first time serving as a consultant. And I wanted to consult because I love this piece and I love these artists so much. I've known all of them and their work for a long time and had the great privilege to produce Adam Gwon's Scotland, PA last fall as here in Minneapolis at Theater Latte Da.
As a side note, I saw that in New York and I loved it. It was such a fun
great one
when I saw it. So congrats on that. All right, wonderful. Now we know our co-hosts. Let's get to the interview. Alice Bliss is based on the novel by Laura Harrington. Set in 2007 in upstate New York, 15-year-old Alice is preparing for a perfect 10th grade year when her dad is unexpectedly deployed to Iraq. She's furious, with no one to hate but her mom. Alice valiantly shoulders her way through 10th grade, driving lessons, first love and all, trying to keep dad safe by acting perfect at home. A heart-stopping, rich, harmonic score buoys this fresh, surprisingly funny look at girls and women on the frayed edge of America, taking the heat of war. Karen, Jenny, and Adam, welcome to New at NAMT.
Thank you so much.
Before we talk more about Alice Bliss, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Sure. I'm Karen Hartman, and I'm primarily a playwright. I came to music theater through theater without music, and I've just been really bit by the bug of the emotion behind music. And I also come from a musical family as a non-musical person. So I feel very lucky to be in a room with all the cool kids making music.
I love that musical theater kids are the cool kids for the moment. A moment on Zoom. We're
That's
the cool kids. Uh,
it.
I'm Adam Gwon. I am primarily a songwriter, composer, lyricist, occasional book writer in the world. And on this project, I have the great privilege of being the lyricist, writing lyrics to Jenny Giering's music, which, as Karen said, I think really beautifully for this story sort of cuts to the heart of these really complicated emotions that these characters are feeling, and which I love trying to capture somehow in very efficient word writing.
My name is Jenny Giering, and I wrote the score for Alice Bliss. And I am so grateful for the words of my collaborators, but I just have to say that the musical doesn't happen without all the words. So they're equally guilty of making a beautiful piece.
Jenny and Karen and Adam, your protagonist, Alice, has had many lives, from the musicals Crossing Brooklyn and Alice Unwrapped to Laura Harrington's novel. Can you tell us more about the development journey and what it's been like exploring this character over multiple projects?
I guess I'll speak to that. So Laura Harrington and I are longtime collaborators. She used to be a playwright before she was a novelist, and we had a commission from Suffolk University to write a devised musical on the theater majors, and we wrote a show called Crossing Brooklyn, which is about life after 9/11. And one of the characters in that musical, one of the minor characters, was a runaway named Alice. And she was cut from the show when it transferred to the transport group who did it in 2007. But we loved her as a character, and so when Paulette Haupt commissioned us to write a one-woman show for her, premieres production, we chose to write about Alice. And we wrote a one-woman musical called Alice Unwrapped, which further explored her. And then Laura said, I don't think I've had enough of this girl, and I'm going to write her into a novel. She'd never written a book before. And she wrote the book Alice Bliss, which sort of took the character in a different direction and really made a family story. And it was published by Penguin Random House and was a critical success. And I read the galleys and I thought, you're going to kill me, but I think this book is actually a musical. So Alice has been kicking around for a long time.
You know, one of the things that I love, that I've loved from the start about this musical is, yes, there are certain socioeconomical themes that are prevalent throughout, and it says a lot of really important things about the U.S. and women, but it's really about telling the story of characters who are just compelling, and that really is sort of drives this musical. And you know, what inspired you to create a musical with these characters that looks at the effects of war on women and girls?
I came into the show when Jenny and Adam had some songs already, and I responded really strongly to the emotional specificity of those songs and also to Laura's book. I've been writing plays since I was 16 years old, and I actually started because I felt like the stories about girls specifically were flat. Like I was just looking for scenes to do in drama class, and there weren't good characters who felt like made friends in me. And I feel even as a woman playwright, sometimes stories about women by women are considered small, but actually, like the Trojan Women is one of the biggest, most important works of drama in history. And to me, that's what Alice Bliss is. I sometimes describe it as Lady Bird, the film, meets the Trojan Women, because it's like you've got these very realistic, just mom and daughter and everyone around them trying to live their regular lives, and they are just caught in the throes of their times. And especially right now, when we're finding ourselves caught in the throes of major times that we did not expect to be living through, that subject just feels right.
There's something too about the way that big idea that Karen is talking about, this family dealing with an a huge and unexpected shift in the way their life is unfolding. The way that the ripple effects of that are exactly what Karen is saying. It starts from a very kind of quotidian, everyday place and just kind of continuously snowballs and snowballs and snowballs until it becomes something that is unmanageable for regular, everyday, non-superhero folks. And as the lyricist in this, and as pulling from the source material of this novel, one thing that I loved about that process is the novel and what Karen has extracted from the novel into the musical is so psychologically rich, and there's so much going on underneath the surface that immediately just sort of, in my mind, begged to be song material. It begged to get this musical theater treatment of we are let inside these very messy, complicated inner lives that are only slowly rippling out into the external world. And that tension, I think, is something that is a huge engine of the story of this show.
Early on, when we first started Alice Bliss, I had just seen an interview with Michelle Obama, and she sort of put out a call to action in the film and theater world about putting stories of military families on the stage. And I was really inspired by that. And also by, it's a story that doesn't get told very much of the secondary effects of war and the people who are left behind. And I really wanted to dive into that because I feel like, and especially then, because during the surge in Iraq, it was just not something that was told very much.
And I think, Jenny, correct me if I'm misspeaking, but this is essentially a version of Laura Harrington's story. Like she grew up in a military family and was impacted in this way. So it's a very it comes from a very personal place.
Yeah, she's a bit older than we are, but her dad was a fighter pilot in World War II. And she sort of lived with her dad, as many people of that generation, coming home and just having incredible scars from the war.
And there's a tone in the novel that I hope we've really tried to keep in the musical, where I think because Laura updated it, but then she purposely didn't totally update every little bit of technology and all of that, there's something timeless about the way the situation plays. Even though I would say our musical is more clearly in 2007 than the novel is. It was something important to Laura because I called her up several times and I was like, the little kid rides in the front seat. They wouldn't do that in 2007. And she said, no, that's how I want it. That scene's not in the show, but there's a timelessness to it.
The musical centers around Alice and her mother and her very brainy kid sister, Ellie. Can you talk to us about the other characters we'll meet in Alice Bliss?
Should we do a little round robin? See if we can cover all the characters amongst the three of us. I can start with Henry, who is the literal boy next door, the boy who's grown up next to the Bliss family and who is best friends with Alice. And he and Alice are, in my head, we don't meet any of the other kids at their school, but I think we very strongly get the sense that they're sort of like the nerds a little bit on the outside of they're not the cool musical theater kids that we are on this zoo. But Henry is Alice's best friend and sort of winds up being her rock in this show, in the absence of her father, and in an unexpected way, their relationship matures because of what Alice is going through with her mom and her dad.
So we also meet Angie, who is Alice's mother, and she is an insurance agent, and she is very type A. She's very different from her daughter. You get the sense that she and Alice are sort of the glue that holds them together is the father, Matt, who is now absent. And now they have to try to figure out how to see each other and get along without this person who is the buffer between them. And that's sort of one of the major conflicts in the show, is how they come together as mother and daughter. She's also a little bit conservative in her views. which is something that she butts up against her mother, who is a hippie. So that's Graham, another character we meet, who is the owner of the diner in town, who is definitely a left-wing peacenik and also in conflict with her own daughter.
Oh no, that means I can only choose, I have to pick one more character. I will say that what we tried to do is have this theme of women in the crosshairs of war run through every single character. So I'll talk about Alice's track coach. She discovers this love of running early in the show, and this is really different from the novel. Her track coach is a vet who has her own wartime experience, who met her wife during a previous turn of service, and her coach also has a disability, like a wartime wound that ends up in the second act, which you won't see in NAMT, coming back to Alice as a form of advice. This song that I love that Adam and Jenny wrote called Take It, that's just like, you know what, sometimes life just kind of comes at you and you don't really have any control. You're not the hero of your own story. You're sometimes caught in what happens. And so, although it's really just track, and the coach is mostly just trying to get Alice to run faster and keep her temper together, there's also this sense like the bigger world runs through every one of these characters, particularly this trio of women in the town, of whom Coach Beatty is one.
Would you guys talk a little bit about that chorus of women is one of my favorite devices that you guys have used to tell the story. And for me, resonates back with the kind of Greek style, the days, like that's the way that you would handle the kind of maybe the world building characters.
I feel like Jenny should start because it started as a musical idea.
Gosh, it's been there for so long I can't even remember the genesis.
I feel it's always been there. Like you've always known there was this trio, and then like we've had to figure out like who they are, you know?
I really get interested in telling story through choral music. I think there's so much power in that, and the way the trio is now, it's sort of they're like this mosaic of women who have been impacted by war in different ways, and they sort of are a little bit omniscient narrators. They're a little bit of Alice's conscience, and I think they're also sometimes our way into the story. I mean, I think they're still evolving. I mean, I think there's a lot more we can mine from them. I think they're a really powerful device.
I think for me too, the trio always spoke to this idea of the community that the Bliss family is a part of, and one of the main arcs of the Angie character, the mother, is that she, because she does have this more conservative, more traditional worldview, she really subscribes to the idea of being fiercely independent and pulling herself up by her own bootstraps. And like when something bad and unexpected happens, you just keep your head down and plow through and figure it out. And I think that character, especially sort of through the lens of her daughter, reaches a point in this situation where that situation just isn't tenable, and it wouldn't be tenable for anyone. And she has to reach out and kind of accept help from the community. And this trio of women, to me, kind of embody that sense of community, this chorus that for a lot of it is on the outside of the family, but then by the end of the show sort of becomes intertwined in this family who kind of desperately just needs the support, even if that support is like someone knocking on the door with a casserole. It's the idea that your community can be there for you, and that asking help of your community is okay and not a sign of weakness.
I would say also that the trio might be where this idea of the vastness of the music meeting that specificity of Adam's lyrics like comes in the most, because the harmonies in the trio are off the chain. They're weird. They're really close harmonies. I don't have the right vocabulary for it, but they feel like the women of all of time bearing witness to Alice, sometimes to Angie as she goes on her way. But then when they pop in, they're like the neighbor you ran into at the grocery store who's judging what's in your cart, you know? So that sense that they're doing this span comes to the fore, I'd say, most in the trio. Yeah.
That's great. Well, since we've touched a little bit more on the musical styles and harmonies and all that, I'd love to ask, you've said that the style of the music in Alice Bliss is reflective of the themes within the musical, and would love for you to kind of expand on that topic.
I have a really hard time pigeonholing my music into a style, but because I really feel like I try to meet the show where it is in terms of writing to a story. And this one is just, and we try to fight against it, but it's an incredibly an emotional piece. And so I feel like the music is expansive because the themes are, as Karen said, I mean, I think it speaks, the journey speaks to women sort of across time.
I will say the music is just hooky. It is flat out charming, is one thing that you really get with Alice and Henry, the best friend that Adam was talking about. You just get this pop-based folk sounding score that feels like it comes out of ordinary people. And then it rises into extreme complexity and depth and beauty, which is why it's hard to pigeonhole. And that's what I love about the piece as well, that it has this sense of this big, big ocean. And then Adam's lyrical style is so simple that I'm kind of like, how did he get that into 4 syllables? You know, like there's this big ocean and then there's this tiny boat bouncing on the ocean, and that's the lyrics, so that you feel like you're with these people in this big world. And the music really does that to me as a listener.
You're awesome, Karen.
That was a thing, Scott. Sorry about it.
I'd love to hear more about the developmental history of the show.
Well, been kicking around for a long time. So we have had a lot of great development opportunities. We have been to the Goodspeed, the Mercer Colony at Goodspeed. We've also had a separate residency at Goodspeed. We've been to Rhinebeck Writers Retreat. We've been to the Weston Playhouse Writers Retreat. We've been to TheaterWorks New Works Festival and 2-week workshop there. We've been to the Orchard Project. What did I miss, you guys?
I think we did a couple of readings at Playwrights Horizon.
Oh yeah, we had readings at Playwrights Horizons. They commissioned it originally.
And I think it's okay to say that the show has had a bit of bad luck in terms of like sticking the landing of its premiere. We had a premiere slated right when COVID hit, and that went away. We had another premiere slated when theaters came back after COVID, and then our theater ran out of money, and we were the last show in the season, and so that went away weeks before we were supposed to start rehearsal. And so we're hoping that the third time's a charm, and we can find a theater to launch our show into the world.
We also lost our director in June, Mark Brokaw, which was another blow. He was definitely our very beloved fourth collaborator.
Yeah, and we're dedicating the show to him.
When people have the opportunity to see this, when people have the opportunity to get a taste of Alice Bliss in the festival, what do you hope audiences take away, both in terms of the Bliss's family story and the broader themes of the musical?
I think something that has drawn me to the piece and has drawn me to wanting the piece to be seen and heard is along the lines of what Jenny was saying in that Michelle Obama interview. There aren't a ton of shows, pieces that tell the stories of military families. And even, I think for me, this story redefines what a military family is in the minds of a general audience. And so I hope that this show can kind of crack open that window a little bit on what the lives are like of people who have members of their family who serve to protect our country. I think it's something that a lot of people don't understand because we don't see a lot of stories about it that feel true and feel sort of earthbound. So that I hope people get a sense of that from seeing the story, and that my dream is that we get to do the show in a place where those people, where military families can come see it and hopefully see themselves reflected in the piece and see their stories told in an honest way.
I think it's really easy right now, especially with all of what's happening with the military right now. I think it's really easy to not see these people as people who are being pushed around and sent to cities. And behind every person who is deployed, there is a family and there is a life that is uprooted when somebody is asked to leave as a part of the Guard or as a part of the reserves. And just to echo what Adam says, we don't talk about that, and we should, if we're going to ask these people to uproot their lives.
And it's really a family story as well, about a family reconfiguring itself and finding connections between the folks, the mother and the daughter, who are more at odds, and maybe the dad was the glue. And now, mom and daughter have to figure it out. And I think that speaks to lots and lots of families that don't look the way they thought they'd look. And so I want people to feel closer to their people coming out of the show.
Looking beyond the NAMT festival, what are your goals for the show, and what do you hope is next for Alice Bliss?
I think we want to get our premiere. We've come so close this past couple times. I think that's where we're at.
I'll just put this out there. So Marcia Norman listened to a really early sharing of this piece, and she said, this show is going to go everywhere. Everyone's going to want to be in this show, and everyone's going to want to do it in their town. And so there's something that I think we hope for in terms of the life of it. Once we get the premiere, that it will just be seen in lots of American cities and towns, wherever there are people who can sing Jenny's music, which I think is a lot of places. And of course we want it to be in New York, but we really want it to reach people who are regular American people living where they live.
I second that.
Before we wrap up, where can people learn more about you and Alice Bliss ahead of the festival? Websites, socials, anything you'd like to share?
We have a beautiful page on the NAMT website,
Yep.
namt.org, which is worth checking out. And I'm sure we'll be updated with all the wonderful people we're going to have in our presentation. I'm most active on social media on Instagram, and my handle is Gwonster, if you want to check me out there.
I think the NAMT website is a good place to start. We don't have a show website yet.
Yeah, you can find me on my personal website, which is just karenhartman.org, or it's Karen Hartman is my Instagram handle. Yeah.
And you can find me at jennygiering.com.
Wonderful. Karen, Jenny, and Adam, thanks so much for joining us today and introducing the listeners to your musical Alice Bliss. I can't wait to see it in October when I'm there.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
A pleasure.
And of course, a huge thanks to our co-hosts today, Elissa and Liz, for joining us today. Thank you to the both of you.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Tune in next time for more incredible voices from this year's NAMT Festival of New Musicals. Once again, I am your host, Jean-Paul Yovanoff, and on behalf of NAMT and MTR, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you in the theater.